Shalom Aleichem Rabbi Sai. This is Yehuda 11. The program is 11 at 11, heard each and every Thursday evening, Leil Shishi on WSNR Radio, 6:20 a.m. with the hours of 11 at midnight. I'm your humble host, Yehuda Halevi Levin, cataloger of the ever-cascading decline into an amoral, immoral, Sodom-like society, which unfortunately is having a tremendous impact on the frum Jewish community as well. This evening we are going to demonstrate how some of our own Orthodox journal organs, media, are proactively helping to bring down the level, the madrega, the sensitivity of the Yidden. We're going to show you in a hands-on demonstration how to read and read between the lines and analyze what it is, sotto voce, sub rosa, subconsciously, that these articles, these pictures, these ideas, how they're impacting in a negative way on the collective and individual Yiddish psyche. I just want to say from the outset, remember when Yosef said to Parai, he said, Biladai, whatever Hashem tells me to say, that's what I'm going to say to you. Now, it wasn't only Yosef because he was Yosef HaTzadik. To a certain extent, as Alistair MacLean named his book in the 1970s, Puppets on a String, we're all puppets on a string. And basically, Hashem is calling the shots. And therefore, even and for sure, one can take my personal life and find many an inconsistency and point out many things that are hypocritical. Like, are you on a madrega to tell us? What about kach v'kach v'kach v'kach? So I apologize, Meirosh, from the outset, and I tell you, these are the ideas that I have. You can take them, you can leave them, you can take them partially, etc. And I'm not saying this from the vantage point of somebody who's up there on the mountain looking at you poor fellas down in the valley. I'm saying this because I have my struggles, society has its struggles, and most of the things that I say are not my struggles. These are in areas where Baruch Hashem, lemechza l'shlish u'revi, or much more, to a greater amount of the whole, I have not drunk the Kool-Aid, and therefore in these things I can see correctly and I can see positively. In other areas, I'm sure, I know that I'm a deeply flawed individual. But in the atmosphere and in the times in which we live, frankly, most of us are deeply flawed individuals. So what the deeply flawed individuals have to do is to take and be makabel some of the good stuff, the message, so to speak, and disregard the keli, the instrument, the medium, the messenger. Don't bother with the messenger. Just evaluate the message. Is there legitimacy to the message? And if it is, fine. Nobody's asking you to have Yehuda Levin win a popularity contest. So I want to make that clear from the outset, so that people should understand where I'm coming from. I'm not coming from a standpoint of superiority, etc., etc. I am coming from a standpoint where I thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu that I have certain sensitivities which I see that a lot of people don't have. Let me begin with a story that came across my chat line, my chat, or chat line I'm associated with, Yiddishkeit Nashkafa, I think it was that one, and they told a fascinating story. I don't know if it's true or not, but if it is, it's even if it's not true, it's worth hearing because it reflects a truth. And if it is true, al achas kama v'kama. And I would place this story under proof of the proactive efforts at de-Haredization of society. An obvious Israeli Baal Tshuva recently came to a right-wing Yiddish-speaking cheder and asked to enroll his children there. They were somewhat taken aback because he was an obvious Baal Tshuva, and they would assume he would send to more of a mainstream type of a yeshiva. So they asked him why he was doing this, and he responded, because recently I went to visit my shver. Obviously, his shver was not from. And his shver told him, you have your children now, but in the next 15 years from now, your children will no longer look askance at me. You're winning right now temporarily, but in the end game, within 15 years, we will win. And the reason is because we are making tremendous inroads into Haredi society through inducements, whether it's the army or whether it's academia, jobs, all kinds of inducements to lower Haredi standards. And according to the way this story said, he said, we're even making headway slowly, insinuating ourselves to certain degrees into various levels of Orthodox Jewish chinuch in Eretz Yisrael. He said the only ones that we're having difficulty with that are standing firm, now this might be allegorical or it might be true, but this is the way the story goes, is the followers of Rav Auerbach. And remember that basically, without getting too much into politics, the late, great Rav Steinman was a supporter of the concept of Nachal Haredi and various other things. And Rav Shmuel Auerbach, was on the other side. And as many of you might know, there was a major civil war going on. And the Auerbach people were thrown out of Chedorim, and they made their own political party and their own newspaper Hapelis. And we see some of or a lot of that philosophy in Rabbi London's very, very valuable newspaper, Lahavin. And the very fact that there are so many people against it is just the proof that it's special. But this story is a fascinating story. So now here comes the kicker. Who was the shver of this Baal Tshuva who so scared his son-in-law about the future of Haredi orthodoxy in Eretz Yisrael that he ran to register his children Dafka in a Rav Auerbach associated cheder? The shver's name was Benjamin Bibi Netanyahu. So there you have it. Unbelievable. And this is something I've been speaking about for the past months. It's not only the Giyus Bonos, it's also the general push to de-Haredize Jews. Right, Rabbi say, let's move right along. I'm holding up the current issue, Parshas Vayera of the Jewish Press. And on the front page, we see something that you will not see in Hamadia, you will not see in Yated, you will not see in Mishpacha or in Ami. A certain gutsiness, a certain standing on their principles. Here's the front page edit article. Jews are attacked and New York Police Department's new commissioner meets with ... Al Sharpton. And it shows a big picture of that on the front page. On the left side, it has the editorial right on the front page. Why is New York so busy placating a black racist? And it's very strong, in-your-face stuff. Now, I'm not getting into it. Is this unrate Sarai? Are you chepping with the black community? I'm not going to even talk about this. My point to the Jewish press is that you have a certain backbone. You have a certain strength of character. and a fealty and fidelity to things that you think are important for the Jewish community. And I'm not saying that they aren't. But why do you suddenly turn milquetoast and parva, and worse than that, supple, almost like supplicant, when it comes to a 36-year-old tzutzik first-term politician like the Bekisher wearing Ziditcheva, Simcha Eichenstein, who's a very nice guy in person. He's good, he helps, he wants good, but the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And as I told you, and I've said innumerable times, and I'll continue to say it, he has voted for many pieces of schmutz legislation. And the Jewish press is now giving the Daniel Rosenthals, the Simcha Felders, the Simcha Eichensteins, the Kalishes, even in Chicago, they're afraid to chapel with the politicians, to keep them on the straight and narrow. I proposed to the Jewish press on several occasions that they should just publish the full voting records on pieces of legislation. If they're reluctant to have any editorializing like they're doing here on the front page, or even in their back pages, to allow opinion pieces, like they did in the past, to criticize these politicians and to notify the Olam, then are we supposed to be so deprived in the Orthodox community that we're not even allowed to know what these skunks, because that's what they are. They're making a terrible odor for all of Klal Yisrael, what these skunks are doing in the various halls of power. Even that we're not allowed to. And I was told, yes, this is a pretty good idea. We're going to raise it. And so far, it has never gotten anywhere, despite my repeated entreaties to one party in the Jewish press. Times are wasting, and things are very, 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 very deleterious. Rabbi Say, in the Jewish press, to their credit, once again, they're the only ones that are really speaking about the situation with Ofsted in the Chinuch in England. On page 18 of the Friday, November the 15th edition, there is an article, on page 17, there's an article that the Catholic clergy issued a statement with regard to the Ofsted's attempts to force them to teach all the schmutz. It declares in parts, parents are the principal educators of their children, and their rights to teach their own children about matters of human intimacy and relationships must be maintained. The right to withdraw children from lessons parents judge to be age inappropriate, insufficiently tailored to their child's unique needs, or against their own legitimate religious beliefs must be held as an unassailable principle. They say much more than that. And it's signed in the name of 500 priests that have to do with the Catholic educators, etc. And Chochma B'Goyim Taimin, we have to learn from them. And of course, you won't see this Nahamadiyah Yater, and we salute the Jewish press. And we also praise the Jewish press for this week. Instead of having the article of the Dispatch from Culture was appear in the way the back of the newspaper, they put it in a decent page 17, so we thank them very much for that. We hope they can continue to do that. We have to beg and plead and get on our knees and appreciate every little thing that they do for us, because unfortunately, the Yated Hamadiyah, there's nobody home. The second item in that same column is the IDF steps up campaigns to draft religious girls. You'll never read it in Hamadiyah, the newspaper of record, the newspaper that you can bring into the Jewish home. Maybe this is too Rav Orbachian Zatzal to say it. We have to keep up the pretenses that everything's okay, and there's no problem with the giyus of drafting of yeshiva boys or yeshiva girls or Orthodox girls. As if to say that when they draft non-Orthodox girls, it's okay. They're allowed to be Zionists and whores and harlots and who cares about them, right? That's a wonderful position. We never said that. We never said that, Levin. What are you putting words into our mouth? Because this is a sin of omission. By omitting this, you are basically being mafker. You and the Gaffneys and the rest of the politicians, you're being mafker b'nois Yisrael tefkerus. Shame on you. The IDF is targeting a whopping 40% of the graduates of national religious girls' high schools. Those are Orthodox people, Mizrahi people. Hesder, for the military draft by the year 2022. That's a scant 2 years from now, according to the military reporter of Ma'ariv. So Ma'ariv can put that out, but Hamadia won't. You think Ruth Lichtenstein and company, they're not going to have to give a din v'cheshbon as to why they didn't arouse the tzibur on this? Who's going to stand in the Beis Shamayla and defend them for this? This is a betrayal. According to the IDF, the number of religious girls now being drafted is approximately 2,500 a year, which includes 27% of girls from national religious schools. The IDF recruits these girls with effective marketing techniques and appealing enticements often aimed at weaker girls. It should be emphasized that this agenda is aimed at Torah-observant girls who are legally exempt from serving. In related news, Olga Samilov, an 18-year-old Balas Tshuva, reports that she was denied her religious exemption despite properly following procedures at an August 14th hearing at the Tel HaShomer draft office. The officer reportedly told her that the army decided not to provide her an exemption without providing any legal rationale or pretext. Consequently, she was given a draft date of October 27th. She refused to enlist and thus lives daily under the threat of imminent arrest. Is she being discriminated against because she's a Balas Tshuva without a support system? Where is the support system? Mayor Porish, where is the support system? Makalov, where are you people? Betrayers and traitors. Okay? Wherever on both sides. An update on what's going on as they tighten the noose around the Orthodox Jewish schools. And the more left-leaning Orthodox schools have implemented the quote-unquote Chief Rabbi Merwis's disgusting betrayal of that shtickle that he put out a year ago, something like that we have to show respect and tolerance and this and that for different alternative lifestyles. You understand he was a pirate scared the Yishachenu Nachash. And I spoke about it right after it happened. And months later, Rav Sternbuch made a tumult about it in Eretz Yisrael, and eventually the European or the English rabbis eventually spoke out about it. But of course, a lot of the schools, the more modern Orthodox schools, adopted this mahalach. And now, as I pointed out to you last week, even the Satmar school made some accommodations. And now, when it's finally getting close to home, so a former Dayan has made national and international news, if not by the Gentiles, certainly by the Jews. One Rav Gavriel Krauss, I don't know who he is, but he put out a kol korah with somebody else on the Manchester Bezin that it's Yahareg va'al Yavar to allow your children to be brainwashed like this. This is another aspect of what Bibi Netanyahu, if that story is correct, was telling his son-in-law. Don't worry, we're getting to you. We're making the inroads. Now, not only that, but the Dayan or the Rav or whatever of the Satmar Kehillah in London, whose name is Rabbi Halberstam, although I heard that in the past he was somewhat weak, he has also, better late than never, spoken out very strongly. Maybe he was embarrassed or maybe he was genuinely shocked and horrified by the Stanford Beis Rachel or whatever the Satmar school is called, accommodating to the extent of putting signs near the bathrooms that we don't discriminate or we are against different genders and different lifestyles and types, whatever the nusach was that they wrote. So finally, we're starting to hear something late in the game from those in England. Now, will the ostrich-like Aguda people and the Satmar and Lubavitch here and everything else continue to say, no, we're going to get away with it, it's been stalled off? Will they take the same attitude fractionally that they took back in 2011 or 2010 when 801A, the poison pill, was upgraded from the early 2000s? And the implications were that eventually they could, as they are now, rolling it out, trotting it out, and applying it, that it could apply even to private schools. So they didn't do anything because we'll always wait until the last minute. We'll try. Maybe we could. Or why don't you get ahead of it at this late stage in the development culture and come out clearly, like the Chazon Ish or the Briskerova, others came out in the 1950s about Dias Bonus, etc. It's Yahareg va'al Yavar. What are we waiting for? We see it in England. Can you read it, Rabbi Reisman? Hello, reprove me respectfully. Could Reb Bender, could you read the handwriting on the wall? Ad Mosai, as the Lubavitchers say. Ad Mosai. Now, while we're on the subject of the Jewish press, listen, everybody's got to make a buck. The Jewish press is in there to provide parnasa for the family and for the people. I understand this. So one of the things that they've started to do is that they now have an international, I'm holding it up for those on the YouTube. By the way, parenthetically, there's a problem here that my YouTube channel is 11 at 11, but somehow, for some technical reasons, the YouTubes that I've been doing for the last few months, unbeknownst to me, have been going to another site that I didn't even realize I had or I made. I don't know how it even happened. Those YouTubes for the last few months of my radio program have been going on a new site, a new YouTube channel. It's called Rabbi Levin or something. I'm going to try in the next week or so to have somebody who has a technical know-how to switch, at least when I make future YouTubes, it should go on to 11 at 11. And if those ones that are already up, if somehow we could switch them to my 11 at 11 channel, I'm going to try to do so. But please be aware, there are archives and there are records of this. Even though 11 at 11 has 200 subscribers or so, and this new one only has 25 subscribers, not that we're getting deluged with hits on these things. Unfortunately for us, or more unfortunately for the tzibur, we're not. But nevertheless, I just wanted to explain that. Now, this magazine is called Kosher World, International Kosher Cuisine, okay? The Kosher World, all right? Now, let's go through their magazine. There's OG, a G is not butter, okay. Beyond rice on Passover, okay. Not bad so far. Then we get into wontons and garlic sauce and Hawaiian poke bowl, an international chicken fritellas, okay, you know, all these kinds of things that the grandmothers didn't know. Strawberry lemonade cocktails. So far, it's not ultra offensive. Okay, now we get to the good part, okay? Here, I'm holding this magazine up. Listen to the title, small print, a few pages. Understanding Scotch, a beginner's guide in 3 unique malts. This is what you have in the beginning. Not understanding a concise or understanding, forget about concise, understanding tefillin, understanding tzitzis in depth. That, no, but understanding Scotch. Before we go any further, let's get something off the table. Scotch is by definition from Scotland. However, a good Canadian, Irish, or American whiskey may be, it's not Scotch. Just like any wine not from the Champagne region of France cannot by law be called champagne. This is all important. Okay, now, then it goes into a whole thing of what Scotch and how to understand it. The lowlands, the highlands, the 6th and final region is called this. We have to know the regions. That's page 1 and 2. Page 3. All tiny print. You got to really hurry here. Rounding out the trio of Scotches is McLellan's Speyside Malt. Unlike our first 2 bottles, it's not a distiller per se. Okay, now we're up to the 4th page. Listen to this, the 4th page. The 4th page on the bottom, I'm holding it up to the YouTube, to the camera. And page 23 of the Jewish Press edition of the Kosher, whatever it is, on November 2019. In the current issue of the Jewish Press, make sure not to miss it. How to taste Scotch. For our tasting, we will follow a fairly traditional method. First, a dram, 1/8 of a fluid ounce of whiskey is poured into the glass. In our case, a double-walled whiskey glass. Make sure you get a double-walled whiskey glass. If not, you're a clunker. While the glass does make a difference, you understand it makes a difference in the overall experience, spending big on glassware is not realistic for most beginners. Not that you have time to become such an Epicurean epicurus that you go and buy expensive glasses, $10 or $15 a glass or whatever it is, so you can get the true taste of the 1/8 of an ounce of the dram of Scotch, okay? We'll not focus too much on this part. Thank you very much. Next, hold the glass at chin level. If it's not at chin level, if it's just on the table, it might not be good. Chin level. And gently inhale through your nose and mouth. This allows the aroma to reach the nose gently without overwhelming the senses. You mean you still have senses left when you're going through this Epicurean experience? What kind of sense? Not any Jewish sense. Next, take a small sip and focus on the flavor of the Scotch. It reaches distinctive parts of the mouth. After the first tip, here's a big secret. You'll be able to enjoy your Kiddush club much better this Shabbos now that you know this secret. Listen up, folks. All Scotch drinkers will add a drop of distilled water to the glass. If it's Be'er Mayim water, bottled water, or tap water, chas v'sholom, you're an oyster if you have to be thrown out of the Kiddush club. It has to be distilled water. And not too much, just a drop. This brings down the alcohol by value slightly and quote-unquote opens up the Scotch, allowing its flavors to be fully enjoyed. Finally, after taking another sip of the water added, swallow the Scotch and look for the taste and feelings that remain when after it is gone, which is called the quote-unquote finish. This is very important for your Yiddishkeit. This is what we need, Bisman Hazeh. So we have to give very big thanks to Adam Ben Dov, whoever he is. I'm sure that's not his real name. Why is he embarrassed? We should be able to give him the full credit. Okay? Now, let me see. Is there anything else in this article? Oh, yeah. Oh, we're not finished yet. Here on page 27, we have the third wave of coffee shops make a splash in Borough Park. A whole store about exquisite appreciation of the various attributes of sophisticated coffee. The milk crate coffee, and we see pictures and everything. Yeah, pages on this Chazarai. Oh, yeah. Then the 1982 coffee roasters. That's another store, I guess. I drink Americanos. Yoeli Lebovitz, owner of 1982 coffee roasters at 5403 13th Avenue, said to the Jewish press, an Americano is made of espresso and hot water to create a more flavorful version of a regular cup of coffee. In the summer, our bestseller is Caramel Frappuccino. You understand? Okay. Then we're not finished yet. We haven't made enough Epicurean apicursus, food and drink enjoyers out of the Yidden yet for this Chodesh. So now we have another article. It says, quantum leap in quality, not your father's kosher wine. And here we have the inscrutable, indubitable, always around to poison us. Yaakov Kornreich is the one who's doing us the honors here, I'm sorry to say. And you have a picture here of the wine tasting. They're all zalfing different wines in a bar like liquor store, M&M kosher wine. Okay. This is one of the challenges confronting a new player in the high end of the kosher wine market. You understand? They've recently expanded its offerings to include a selection of fine Italian wines from the famous Famiglia Cotellaro vineyards at the Umbria and Lazio Norige. Oh, I feel so bad that I don't know I'm enamored of the old Italiano wines. Oh, yeah. It's wine because I have the wine. I have the wine because I don't appreciate the wine. I'm such a peasant. I'm such a lowbrow. Oh. Then on the third page of this garbage, Okay, unfortunately, pasteurization, mevushal, degrades the wine. Part of the challenge for M&M importers is to show more kosher consumers that they have been missing. You've been missing, Rabbi Sai. You can't serve God with the sanctifying of the wine properly. You've been missing. Don't have articles about tzitzis with menupets lishma, or the chumras of tzitzis, which is connected to Taryag mitzvahs, that we won't see. No, you're missing the wine because it was pasteurized. Through Rosh Chodesh clubs and fine wine tasting Rosh Chodesh clubs, you understand? Come on, kapor l'chol tadoisam, to zalf the wine, you understand? M&M is teaching. They're teaching the kosher wine buying public to recognize and appreciate the added value in a bottle of fine, non-mevushal wine, and justification for its higher price. Due to the significant added cost, you have to understand you're getting a mitzvah. You Epicurean. What am I saying that for? Epicurean were the people, the ancient name given to the people who did these kinds of things. And that's the derivative that we have of the word apikoris. You understand? And this is what we're all becoming. Like the wine and cheese tasting things that they have. the wine and cheese tasting parties that they're sponsored by Baron Herzog's Kedem. The Baron must be turning over in his grave. Now look at this. You can't make this stuff up. It's as atrocious and as scary as the Benjamin Netanyahu story. This is a full page I just held up on page 37 at the end of this magazine, Kosher World. And it says, wine tasting for novices. What's the difference between a good wine and a great wine? Can a wine novice tell the difference? The short answer is yes. Fine wine tasting is an elaborate ritual, but it's as much an art as a science. Differences are subtle. Judgments are subjective. As an impromptu wine tasting at his office, we have to give credit. Dr. Ralph Madeb demonstrated to me the qualities of two M&M importers' fine Italian wines compared to less expensive but good quality kosher wines of the same type. All of these wines are non-negotiable. We compare M&M's Montasiner Merlot Vintage 2014 from the Famiglia Corteglia Lazio, Italy, $75 to two Israeli Merlot wines, a Dalton 217 from Napa Gallia for $20 and a Piscote Vintage for $30. The Montenegro has a deep black cherry color, in aroma combines fruity, earthy smell, some of which are due to the climate and soil conditions. Terroir. The soil conditions are called terroir. Remember, if you don't know terroir, you're an Amoritz. Where the grapes were grown, the wine's initial burst of flavor, attack it's called, was a smooth blend of subtle tastes. Okay? Then the 1848 seventh generation Cabernet was a disappointment. Disappointment. It was such a disappointment. It was sweet, somewhat earthy aroma, but a relatively muted taste and very little finish. And now I've lost my whole sense of self-worth because I was telling my chaverim at the Kiddush Club that this is a good wine. And now Ralph Madeb proved to the Jewish press, Yaakov Kornreich, that it's not. It's inferior. After careful consideration, I concluded that the two M&M Italian wines were clearly superior to the less expensive competitors, and are likely to get even better if allowed to age for a few more years. But that, of course, is just one man's opinion. But now I understand. This is reading between the lines. So you understand, you stupid Neanderthal caveman Amoritz, when you get shocked if your child or your grandchild or your son-in-law comes in with a $75 bottle of wine, it's because you're a Neanderthal, you're a caveman. Look, here, read this propaganda in the Jewish press over Shabbos, when the women and the people will read this, and you become educated. Why you have to give $75 bottles of wine? Because clearly the other stuff is inferior, and you deserve the most superior. Yeah, this is maybe the Geula. Maybe the Geula. Unbelievable. Maybe the Geula. Now, listen. Hakol hoilech achar achitim. Everything goes after the end. You're not going to believe this. Itti Yankovich, we have to give a credit on page 42 of this Kosher Chazarai, this Kosher World International Kosher Cuisine. Question, this is the article, last 2 pages. Are you an exotic cook? Many like to think of themselves as avant-garde home cooks. They run to purchase the latest cookbooks and share and post the trendiest recipes with their friends. You see, this is what I'm telling you about. This whole Avodah Zarah, the Avodah Zarah. Avodah Zarah is not only a picture of a golden cow or to worship the sun and the moon. Elohim Acherim is this kind of garbage. You understand? They scour the aisles looking for that special exotic spice that can only be found in price gourmet stores. In other words, spend $10 or $15 to get a small canister of spice so you can tell your neighbors and your friends and share on the internet how you're avant-garde. So Itti Yankovich says, but are you really an out-of-the-box chef, or do you rely on the classic box of mac and cheese when no one is around? Take this quiz to determine how much of a connoisseur of cuisine you really are. This is apikursis, mamish, garbage. Question, define sous vide. I don't know. You can't define sous vide. You're a flunky. You're a lowlife. You're a loser. Sabich is a popular Iraqi sandwich that is popular all over the Middle East. What is it? These are multiple choice questions. Is it better not to know? It's salad, eggs, and eggplant, hot peppers, chickens, and chickpeas and okra, or basically a kebab in rice? Do you know the answer? You don't know the answer? Shame on you. Read about it in Shabbos. Do your research. You think you're avant-garde? You're just a hamoinam. You're a peasant. Here's the third question. Foods that are plant-based are whole foods, another word for vegan, foods which are main ingredients are a fruit, vegetable, grain. Okay. No. Who is Chani Applebaum? Ooh, you don't know who Chani Applebaum is? I have to confess, I don't know. Owner of a trendy hotspot in Manhattan, a popular shopkeeper who also runs a food truck, a famous kosher food critic, author of Millennial Kosher. Yeah. You understand how they play mind games? What is fusion cuisine? Anything on T-Fusion menu, Tex-Mex and sushi pizza. Food uses electrical currents for an extra jolt of flavor. Za'otar consists of Persian food, red wine apple, ground dried daytime fig, thyme, oregano, marinaro, chves. Can't even read this. Here, question number 5. Alaham tomahawk is one of the most ordered dishes at Reserve Cut. Do you know what Reserve Cut is? You lowlife. You should be ashamed of yourself. This is a reason for lack of shalom bayis. The husband doesn't take the wife out to Reserve Cut. Okay? Title of Arabic Native American fusion best-selling cookbook. Who knows? Where can one find bao buns and faux bowls? Hopefully not in a Yiddish store or a Yiddish household, but that's not what the choice is. The choice is in a Red Bath and Beyond in the Philippines, in a Bed Bath and Beyond in the Philippines, at Faux Men on Troy, any kosher Vietnamese restaurant, you understand, or on Amazon. This is such garbage. It's sickening. The next question, a 5-blade spiralizer makes a cool gadget because it gives you a really good clean shave. It can double as a school supply. An Instagram influencer said it was, so it must be. It's great for those on paleo diet and gluten-free diets. The Instant PotSmart double Wi-Fi programmable pressure cooker is an Amazon hit because, okay, you understand? Rabbi side, this is the brainwashing. Now we come to the pace de resistance tonight. We're talking about, as we're 40 minutes or so into the program, we're going to spend the rest of the time looking at the Sukkot edition of Mishpacha. On principle, I don't buy the stuff at the full price. And I mentioned that there was a horrific article there that I was given a heads up on, but I wasn't going to spend $9 for that package of Mishpacha, $9. So I bought it today. I thought it was going to cost me $2 because it's remained at their store. But the owner of the store said, listen, I pay high rent. I'm serious. We had this conversation. And listen, I need to make parnasa. So I'll give it to you for $4.50. It's an vayera to spend money on this garbage. But I did it for you, Rabbi. I spent $4 for this. But l'maisa, this stuff is important. Here I'm holding up an ad that appeared in the Mishpacha. This page after page of beautiful, spiffy, high glossy ads called Jubilant Events. Armando Martillo, fine European blend, available in all better boutiques. And it shows a kid around 14 or 15 wearing one of the suits there, okay? One of the suits with a crazy collared shirt. The chup on that kid is around 3 or 4 inches tall. It's around 3 or 4 inches tall. So what is the sub-rosa, subconscious message to the foolish people, the mothers, and even some of the kids who are flipping through the magazines? I want to look like this model, who, for all I know, has airbrushed a photoshopped the yarmulke on the back of his head. But it's fat, it's goyish, it's garbage. I mean, there's chups and there's chups. Well, you don't have to glorify it like this. Okay, now, we have another one. This is Mahadrin, Heilig, Mahadrin ice cream. I have to admit, I eat Mahadrin ice cream. Here, it's a huge pile. It says, thanks for being a part of the Mahadran family. And that is a huge pile. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 or 16 different products of all kinds of ice cream and ices. How did we ever live without all of these choices? I've told you, but it bears repeating again, the story of Rav Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld, probably in the turn of the 20th century or somewhere around then. There was, in the Yerushalayim Shalmala, there in that time, people were destitute. So a gentleman came. He says, I have a large family. If I make a tzikkerel, a sucking candy, and you give a hechsher, everybody will buy it. I'll have parnasser. Reb Chaim had Rachmanis, and he went and he gave a hechsher. Next year, the guy comes to him and says, I did orange. I want to make now a pineapple one. Rev Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld told me, ein circle is genug. You understand, the Gemara says, before you pray for kach, pray that the delicious, delectable Epicurean stuff shouldn't go into your stomach. You shouldn't become an Epicurean. You shouldn't become you understand? This is what it's about. And we're doing just the opposite now, just the opposite. Now we come to the reason that I bought the Mishpacha, the mega Mishpacha issue of Sukkot Pass. On page 99, it's called The Current Balance of Power by Benjamin Rose, again, who's guilty of helping to facilitate the brainwashing, the rationalizing, the koshering of three absolute low-life Haredi politicians, state representatives. Kalish, the Aguda turncoat from Chicago, who spoke and gave numerous new interviews that he was pro-Mishkav Zacha marriage and pro-abortion, etc., in the Chicago Sun-Times and in Politico, and never backed off on this. That's Oisworth number one. Gary Sher, a huge Oisworth from Passaic, New Jersey, who literally was asking questions on the panel last year of the bill that forced them to teach Mishkav Zohar stuff throughout the Goyish public school system. Gary, the Orthodox yarmulke-wearing Sher, who's featured so prominently here is the dean, the first one Orthodox Jew to be a state representative in the country. He was busy, we showed videos of it, because there's records of it. He was busy telling the gay panel that was testifying in front of him, why did you do this, why did you do that, to make it even stronger, to force down the schmutz. But here at the Chazer Fiesel, that Benjamin Rose, the Oisworth writer, he's Oisworth, he is poisoning our minds, okay? All that blooms is not a rose, you understand? I would call him a shrub or a thorn bush. That would be more of an apt name. So he's featuring Gary Sher, and the third one is good old Simcha Eichenstein, the Zidichoiva trader, that guarantee you the Zidichoiva Zaydis are unzufrieden from the garbage that he supports. Now, this is a very, very long and comprehensive article, and we can only go through it over the past. Now, I'm turning the pages because I'm trying to get to the good part. Okay. Here we have like this. Here we have a statement by Yechiel Kalish. That being said, like Simcha was saying, we have a strong far-left progressive group that is challenging any Democrat, not just me. In other words, poor Simcha Kalish is going to be challenged, or was already challenged, in a Democratic primary from the left. We've now seen at least 15 Democrats who will be challenged in primaries from the left. And if our community doesn't get the message how important it is that we have our own elected officials in that chamber to moderate and to make sure that our community is protected from these attacks, then Illinois will be much further away from the center than we can imagine it is today, which is a very scary prospect. Let me explain to you. This is how you read an article. You have to read between the lines. What he's saying is, I'm taking a blackjack, I'm taking a bully club, like the policemen used to have those sticks, a nightclub, whatever they called it, and I'm going to batter you over the head. I'm strashing you. I'm threatening you. The threat is, if you don't take me, Yechiel Kalish, or the rest of us turncoat politicians, then you're going to get something to the extreme left, which is far worse. So let me tell you my response to this. In 1996 or 94, I can't remember when, it was maybe 94 rather, I came back from after Pesach, and I found that they had started talking about partial birth abortion. That was when it made itself famous on the national scene. Partial birth abortion is when the baby is in a late term of the pregnancy already, and the baby is partially delivered because it's too developed that you can't eliminate it in utero while it's still inside the uterus, so it's partially delivered, and then its head is pierced with a suction type scissors. It's pierced, like Michael, if you don't like it. This is what's going on. Its brain matter is sucked out, and then it's narrow enough that it can squeeze out. This is Ritzicha Mamish, and even Ed Koch, the Oisov, and Patrick Moynihan, the late unlamented senator, said, we support abortion, but this is barbarism, this is murder. Okay, so this is what was making the Pope went and spoke about it. He interfered, and it was a headline in the New York Post, a front page story. So I come back here, and the newly elected governor, Potaki, who was a conservative, is suddenly speaking. We have to have a big dent, and I don't know if he was in favor of partial birth abortion, but he was definitely in favor of all types of abortion. And I was speaking to Jeff Wiesenfeld, who was a very modern Orthodox, if he's even from, but he's certainly a traditional, and he was, Pataki's Jew boy. And I was complaining to him. He said, listen, this is not Arkansas. If you're not going to have Pataki here, who's going to have to make accommodations as a Republican, you're going to have Chuck Schumer. So pick your poison. What do you want? In other words, he was telling me the same garbage that Kalish is telling me. I told him, when Pataki is in on the Republican conservative line, it lulls us into a sense of security, and he moves all the people who are Republicans and conservatives to become more socially liberal on Ritzicha, on Mishkav Zocha, and everything else. I'd rather there should be an Oisov like Schumer or Mario Cuomo, where we're clearly in the opposition and it's delineated, and we know we can't have this accommodationist garbage that is preached by Aguda, Satmar, Lubavitch, Askonin, and the politicians today. And that's the garbage that Kalish is pushing. It's Chazet Treif. We're almost at we are in the abyss, cascading down. As you see in England, you see it in New York. You continue to swallow this. He says this, and of course, he's not challenged when he says this. Now, Gary Simcha, do you see that in your states as well? Gary Sher, without a doubt, I often say to people, if you want the truth, go to shul. Listen to this oisvav. If you want the truth, meaning if you want your Shemayim or standards of Yahar Val Yavar, they call that the truth. You understand? This is how they phrase things. Go to your mosque and your temple, wherever it is that you go, but don't seek it in politics. Within the Jewish community, God bless us, we sometimes seek a certain purity that others don't feel the need to accept. This purity means no compromise, which means things must be this way and only this way, and there's no other interpretation. And I think that for us as a community, that is not a positive thing. In other words, he's telling us everything is for sale. The real politic is such that all the three of us need to operate within the Democratic Party, which has been the majority party, not for one term or two terms, for several. Politics is about compromise. Politics is about working with others. All these drushes. Politics is finding a way that one can be happy with and champion some issues, and on others to tone down or to change legislation that otherwise wouldn't occur. As Yechiel said, I have a little bit of an outsized presence in the state, because he has a high position. He's like a deputy leader or something of the state of New Jersey. And frankly, that presence has been very helpful in passing legislation that we want. In other words, gelt and gelt and gelt. Okay? Now, this is garbage. This is all Benjamin Rose and Mishpacha are being used as a vehicle because people like Yehuda Levin and a handful of Nassim Leiter and a handful of us have raised the issues about the betrayal on this radio program and in other places about the betrayal of moral values. And people are it's become so big with the immorality legislation. And because of the threat to yeshiva education in England and in Belgium and in New York, so people are starting to look. So gasp. We have to now cover the politicians because people are going to actually start to finally ask, what are those bekashu wearing and beard wearing and Haredi Orthodox people? What are they doing in Albany or in Chicago? So since the Haimis are waking up a little, not because Haimi Hamodia or Yated will have even the Jewish press is now chickening out, not because of that, but because the word gets around. So this piece is a proactive attempt to throw dust in your eyes, to give rationalities and not to really ask or get or hear. If you ask a quasi-hard question and he fumbles around, as I'll show you, Rose doesn't follow up and ask a stark comeback like they do in press conferences, etc. We get the sanitized airbrush version because Rose and Mishpacha and the owner of Mishpacha, Palei, and the whole pack of them, they think we're all a bunch of Haimis and Haimitan and we'll swallow the malarkey. Unfortunately, they are largely right. There are only pockets of resistance. Now, so Simcha says, the reality is that we need to vote for the Democratic Party. We need to participate in that process. We need to advocate and work with our Democratic colleagues in the conference. As a community, we need to vote and elect moderate Democrats. This is such a sheker. Who are the moderate Democrats? Can you call somebody who supports Mishkav Zocha and baby Ritzicha and assisted suicide or any of those three things? Could you, any stretch of the imagination or government overreach into your lives and all kinds of issues? Can you call them moderate Democrats? You fun for you lawyer. There are no more Democrat moderates. What's a moderate Democrat? Does Rose ask that, the great intellect? Of course not. Of course not. He just lets them blather on, and people are not sophisticated. You don't know how to read. Chabdeu v'chashdeu, read it suspecting, and see all the treifkeit and all the attempts at manipulating. I don't agree with someone 100% of the time. Does not mean that we cannot find alliances on other issues that are vital to our community. But what is when they're trying to poison us with schmutz? You understand? This is all gefunkte raid. There's no line in the sand. Now, here, finally, Rose asks the tough question. He asked Simcha Kalish in the past year, let me see where we're holding, 21 and 50. Yeah, we're 50 minutes into the program, boys. I hope we'll have enough time. He asked, if not, we'll continue it next week. In the past year, Illinois and New York passed major revisions to what's called in both states the Reproductive Health Act, liberalizing abortions. Abortions were already liberalizing. He should have said, Rose should have said, codifying infanticide and ritzicha, even the way Rose poses the question. You're a yid, you have a beard, you send your kids to yeshiva, Rose. Was liberalizing abortion, you ox, you fared. Abortion was liberalized in 1973 with 60 million babies dead past liberalizing abortion. You mishuggin of what you are. We're now talking about a baby who survived a botched abortion that can be withheld from receiving medical attention. That's what we're talking. This is called infanticide ritzicha, Rose. You can't bring yourself to say it, or you're too ignorant of what's going on. You are a sin of omission, which is equal to a sin of commission. You are proactively misleading people. And I'm sorry to say, there's a din v'cheshbon. I'm not being kovid din on you, Laman Hashem. It's just, what's the matter with you people? Yechiel, I'll start with you because for you this was a real firestorm and you're still working on dousing the flames. Your broad constituency is very pro-choice and they were expecting a yes vote. Your Orthodox Jewish constituents expected a no vote. You voted present, which made nobody happy. Listen to what he asks him. Looking back, would you have made the same choice? And going forward, what will you do next time faced with such a conflict? So he asks him what he will do going forward. He never answers what he would do. The Oisraf never answers. Does Rose say you didn't answer the second part of the question? No, he doesn't. He leads it to a person like Yehud 11 with the grubber finger to deduce the sheker, the oisvar that he is. But you don't tell the rest of the story, Rose. Not what your constituency expected. You cut a dirty deal with your predecessor, which was written up in Politico, in the Chicago Tribune, and the Chicago Sun-Times, and in the Jewish Telegraphic Agency. And the guy who preceded you, I forget his name, having a senior moment, he said, I would never, ever have considered giving this appointment to Kalish if he hadn't promised me that there's no air separating us on the social issues. That means Kalish said, and Kalish said beferish, that he promised the public he was going to vote pro-gay marriage and pro-abortion. He's going to defend it. I'm telling you, Rabbi says, Oim V'Noda, with this hilarious, this Oisvarf who's gotten away with. Says Kalish, you can't look back at a vote that took place. I don't know why you can't look back. It's irrelevant. He ploppers, he ploitis, he says things with an arrogance that doesn't. When I was sitting on May 28th and May 29th, having to make a decision, I believed, given the information that I had, he's talking about what information do you have, what changed, he double talks, etc., etc. Shtusim, lie, sheker, phony. I'll share a story. Representative Jay Shashowski who's virulently pro-abortion, said that when she was asked in her first maiden run, she was asked, will you vote your district or your conscience? She lied and she said your district, but she says, I always voted my conscience. And this story that Kalish is telling me, she is showing up Kalish. Because if Kalish would have voted his conscience, hopefully his conscience is Yiddishkeit, okay, then he would have not voted present. He voted present, nishtahin, nishtaher. You understand? That means he turned the other cheek to immorality and to Ritzicha. And the only reason he didn't vote for it is because Rabbi First, who I can give you a whole list of things that he's not so first about, but in this thing, he did the right thing and he put pressure on Kalish, and maybe others did. So Kalish didn't have the guts. He saw he got away. When he voted to force the teaching of homosexuality into the public schools in Illinois, afterwards, Aguda sent a delegation of lobbying, and he was the hero of that delegation because he provided them with kosher food and hobnobbed and speakers and everything else. They didn't even mention that. But abortion already, the Haimis still understand that Ritzicha, okay? So he couldn't get away with it. So he voted present. Tremendous Chil Hashem. Now he says, he tries to rationalize more. There were some good points in that bill, but there were some things that weren't so good. So I consulted and I did present. He doesn't answer what he's going to do. This is a shkotz oisvarf. Okay, that's what he is. Now, they asked Simcha, what did you do? Did you walk out on the vote? Did you vote? And Simcha says, I voted against this bill. Yeah, he voted probably against this bill. Did Simcha get up and speak against it? Heartfelt speak about, describe, like Goyim did, like doctors did in front of Congress and everything else, the horrific aspects and the pain felt by the babies? Did he say, I come from a Holocaust survivor community, the biggest one in the world maybe, and therefore we are keenly aware that this is a 60 million preborn babies eliminated, and how it is to eliminate them at a late stage in pregnancy and not to provide. Did he do any of this? Oisvar for he is. No, he didn't. It would be something about geld for hate crimes. Then he would get up and he would speak, but not for this. And he's punted because he voted the right way. What about he voted the wrong way, as I told you, on other bills having to do with abortion, and that if a lady gets an abortion, you're not allowed to fire her as a teacher, and that could affect Beis Yaakov schools. What about that? That he doesn't tell you what he voted for, and all the other 10 Oisvar for right bills that he voted for. Shakronim and garbage. Now, Gary Sher tells us that on assisted suicide was one of only 2 times. You hear this guy is around for 10 or 15 years, and 10 or 15 years come out in public office, statewide office. 2 times he voted against what the Democratic Party wanted. Do you know he spoke in a Passaic shul, and he actually voted. He had a signing of a bill in Ron, what's his name's, I can't remember his second name, the rabbi, Ron, he calls himself, in Passaic, a bill signing that Mamish had gayachs in it, and the Haimis didn't do anything about it. We're going to continue this, I think, next week. We're not finished with this Oisvar Ferraya by side. But he said on this bill on assisted suicide, he told his good friend, the sponsor, it's a reprehensible bill. So the guy says, can you vote absence? He said, no, I have to vote for it. He says, can you do me a favor and not speak against it? Gary shared the oisvarf. And Gary said, I agreed not to speak against it. He has the smoking gun. He agreed not to speak about it. And he says I could have maybe influenced a few votes. It passed by one vote. This garbage passed by one vote. And so Gary Sher says he has sleepless nights. It passed by one vote. He's a Reitzeach. Gary, the Orthodox Sher, did Rose push on? Did he do research on that bill? Did he follow up? Did he ask him the questions? A nechtige Tag. A nechtige Tag. Moirever Rabbi Sai. We're in the final moments of this program, the final minute of this program. Rabbi Sai, you have to understand, if we're not going to start to see how the Haredi media and the politicians if we're not going to start to see how the Haredi media, the Haredi politicians, the lack of action by the rabbinate, and we're not going to see how these things are affecting us actively and sub rosa, subtly and actively. If we're not going to start to wake up, we're not going to start to hold these people accountable after 120 years. Won't we be asked by HaKadosh Baruch Hu? This is Yehuda Levin. Become a shutef in this program. God forbid I should ask you, if I would beg you to please help me financially in this program, to contact me at rabbilevin@gmail. I desperately need help, but I will continue, as I said, as I pledged, to max out on my credit cards to continue to bring you this program. But I could desperately need help. But more desperately, or equally desperately, I need people to tell other people about this radio program. The more people that listen, the more we can effectuate change. To Kiddush Hashem, join the revolution. Until next time, a guten Tamid.